At a height of 19,341 feet above sea level, Kilimanjaro is Africa's highest peak and the world's largest freestanding mountain. Today we hear from Bradley Williams, who climbed the mountain and raised money for charity at the same time. So Bradley, why on earth did you want to climb Kilimanjaro?
I have always loved to travel and try new things. I've done smaller challenges to raise money for charity, like half marathons, but I wanted something bigger. A friend had climbed Kilimanjaro and told me how tough it was. It was exactly the challenge I was looking for.
What did the actual climb involve? What was a typical day?
There are different routes to take on Kilimanjaro. We took the Machame route. We walked for about 8 hours each day. It started as thick rainforest and, as we got higher, there was less and less vegetation, so no 2 days were the same. We got up at 6 a.m., got ready and walked all day. By the time we arrived at the next camp, we were really tired. We would eat and then climb into our tents and sleep. Not very glamorous, I'm afraid. On the final day, we arrived at base camp, slept until midnight and then tried for the summit. After we reached the summit, we came down the mountain almost in one go. So on that last day, we walked for about 16 hours.
You set off at midnight and walked through the night. That must have been tough. Was that the hardest part?
The whole thing was exhausting. 8, maybe 9 hours a day walking uphill eventually leaves you without any energy. The final climb was the hardest part mentally. Every time I put my foot down, it slipped, and I only moved forward a few inches. It was pretty discouraging. The hardest thing was getting your mind to keep going when your body wanted to stop.
Did each person have a guide, or did you do this as part of a group?
When I climbed, there was only me and a friend, but some groups can be as large as 20. Everyone walked at their own pace, but we all stayed in the same camps, so we saw some familiar faces by the end of the trip. Each group had a guide and an assistant guide, possibly 2, a cook and porters.
What did the porters do?
They had a really tough job, probably the toughest of all. When we set off in the morning, they packed up the camp. They then carried up to 40 pounds of equipment each. They would almost run past us on the trail, set up the camp and start cooking before we had finished walking. They were truly amazing people.
Did you need any special equipment to do the climb?
No, only walking poles and some good hiking boots. The porters carried everything for us. I felt a bit guilty, actually. I only had to carry water and food for the day. Maybe some sunblock as we were above the clouds for most of the trip, and the sun was pretty strong. The porters took the tents, the cooking equipment, our backpacks and supplies for 8 people for 6 days. There was a lot to carry.
You mentioned a cook. What was the food like?
The food was amazing, considering the conditions. We ate lots of ginger because it helps with altitude sickness, and lots of rice and porridge, which is high-energy food. There was a different meal every night, and a huge packed lunch. Unfortunately, we felt sick most of the time, so eating was hard work. But the food they produced on one small camping stove was astonishing.
Altitude sickness. Is that a big problem?
Almost everyone who goes to that height suffers. You can't really tell who will be affected by altitude sickness, or how badly. There are some general theories, but everyone reacts differently. I remember sitting on a rock and my head was pounding. I was trying not to be sick and was totally exhausted. As I sat there feeling sorry for myself, a German lady, about 65 years old, strolled past, as if she was out for a relaxing walk in the park. I couldn't help but laugh. It made me get up and carry on.
What have you taken from this experience?
To be honest, the time on the mountain was horrible at points. Constant severe headaches and nausea really do take the fun out of things, but I loved the experience. I learnt a lot about myself on that trip. I set myself a goal and achieved it, so I'm immensely proud, and it did some good for charity. Reaching the summit was like nothing else I have experienced. It was a very special moment.
Bradley, thanks for talking to us and good luck with any future endeavours.